Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to the show. This is episode 206, The Importance of Having a Financial Plan in Place with Matthew Tomlin. Matthew, thank you for joining me back on the show.
Jake, of course. Thank you for having me back.
And thank you to all our viewers, listeners, readers out there. It's crazy how we're just rolling right through 200 episodes of Upticks. So that's been a lot of fun to record. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. And again, the best way to make sure you don't miss an episode of Upticks is to subscribe. So if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform or watching this on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. And if you think it's any good, a thumbs up would be appreciated. Now, Matthew, before we dive into today's topic, which I think is going to be a really fun discussion, I want to hear, is anything personal going on in your life? I know you got a puppy, right? So how's that going?
Yep, Jordan and I adopted a little puppy. So she's actually 4 months now. We're getting ready to do a DNA test on her, but we think she's a lab. But we've done all the fun puppy stuff. We started training, but she's been a handful, but it's been really, really good.
And what's her name?
Her name is Sylvie.
Sylvie. Is she silver?
No, she's actually like a blonde kind of golden lab.
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, yeah, Einstein, I think that's when we got him when he was probably about 4 months old. And it's a lot of fun. I'm glad you guys are having fun, and good luck with the training.
Thank you. Yeah, she's a handful, but we're loving it. So
good. Yeah, no, dogs and pets are a lot of fun. Also, for our viewers that haven't seen you on an episode before, you are one of the lead financial planners on our team. You're a certified financial planner. Maybe you can go into exactly what that means a little bit for everybody that doesn't know.
Yep. So this Certified Financial Planner exam, or the CFP, it takes a dive into a lot of the different areas of financial planning. So estate planning, taxes, insurance. There's a lot of general stuff too, like if you want to sell your business or planning for college. But essentially, it just takes a deep dive into all those different areas. Then once you've met all the education criteria, so you can sit for a final exam, a comprehensive exam that's about 6 to 8 hours. Then at that point, once you pass it, you submit your kind of background to the board, you do ethics, and at that point, you become a certified financial planner.
Yeah, which is really the cream of the crop in our industry. I mean, I have the retirement portion. I'm a chartered retirement planning counselor, but the CFP really covers a lot deeper subjects in a lot different areas. And that's why we're excited to have you on our team. And for our clients, basically Matthew sits in most of my meetings along with Jake. And then you also meet with clients one-on-one, basically as an extension of me. So what's great about our clients is we're doubling up now. And so they get another set of eyes, another set of ears, somebody else looking at their plan, looking at their investments to help guide them along. And that's actually the point of today's show, is that every single new client that comes in our door, and most all of our current clients, I mean, it's something crazy. It's like, isn't it like 97% of our clients have a financial plan on file in place in our system? Is that accurate to say that?
Yeah, it's very accurate. Every new client, we spend the time, we crunch the numbers for them. It's very important to have one of those.
Right. And what's important about this financial plan, and I always get on my high horse here a little bit, is that it's not a roadmap. So I don't want people to think when you set up a plan, that's the way the next 30 years of your life is going to look like, and nothing's going to change. Or if the dollar amounts change, it's because we did better or the market did worse. I mean, some of that plays a role, but ultimately your life changes. And so the key, though, is to get that plan established and then review regularly with myself or Matthew or for someone from our team to update the plan and look at the new projections. And really what today's show is about many of the questions that we answer for clients. That's really what we do at Falcon Wealth Advisors. When you boil it down, we answer financial questions. and guide people along. And so I want to go through some of those, and it's going to be a very common trend that hopefully our audience will pick up on here towards the end of the show. So I encourage you to listen to the whole show or watch the whole show, because there's a point to all of these questions. So I'll start with number one. So if a client asks you, Matthew, when can I retire? How do you answer that question?
That's a good one. Usually I would flip it back to them and say, when do you want to retire? Because that's a little bit more fun of a question and something we can, plan towards versus, just looking at the numbers. But essentially what we'll do is once we have all their information in the plan, we'll plug in various retirement dates. And a lot of it depends on their, how much they want to spend in retirement. And what we try to do is replace, their paycheck. So whatever they're netting each month, whether it be, 4 or 5, 6,000. Then we see if we can do that from, what they've had in investments and other income streams. And as long as that can sustain throughout the rest of the plan, and that would be a date that they could, retire.
Perfect. Yeah. And I listened to this on a podcast the other day, and I plugged it on social media last night, is that I also like that phrase, work optional, right? So we might be starting to incorporate that, because retirement sounds so almost final, but work optional means you don't have to go to work anymore, because you're right. We can show you through the financial plan how we can replace your paycheck, which that makes now work optional. And so that's good. But again, you can't answer that question without resorting to the financial plan, right?
Yeah, we need basically all the information. We need your, liabilities in retirement, other income streams, if you want to go on vacations each year, you want to pay for grandchildren's education, all that factors into that one retirement date. So it's a pretty hard question to just answer, out of the blue.
Right. And that leads me to my next question is, how do you answer this question? Well, Matthew, how much can I afford?
Yeah, so that one also is going to depend on your investments. When you retire, you might have an option to take Social Security, depending if you have enough credits or a pension. But as a rule of thumb, we usually start with a 4% withdrawal, and that's kind of been, what people in education have taught as a safe withdrawal rate from your investments. So if you have $1 million, you can, take out 4% and, be fine, at least historically. But we start there, see how much you have investable, Social Security, other income streams, and we just see how much you need in retirement.
Right. And then a growth rate on those investments, obviously. So all that plays in. So the growth rate on the investments, how much you need to replace your income, how much you have. And then again, we don't just answer that. Like, somebody can't just call that's not a client and we answer that question. Yeah, that 4%, that's paper napkin. That's a place to start. Yeah. But you're right. Ultimately, we got to go back to that financial plan, and hopefully you can see my theme emerging here. We go back to the plan, plug all that data in, and then we can tell you, is it $10,000 a month? Is it $8,000 a month? Is it $12,000 a month? So that based on where you're at today, what your projection is, and then you can align your budget, if you have a budget. Not everybody has one, which is fine, by the way, to that spending goal to see if it properly aligns.
Yeah, because we also factor in inflation and also our rate of return, as you mentioned. So there's a lot of different variables that goes into your kind of monthly need.
Right. So I thought, yeah, so exactly. So that goes into the plan. So we got to run all these numbers, look at the plan, and then we can answer that question for you, which is great. But again, we can't just answer that. But, a simple thing is, like you said, you've got $1 million, hopefully we can make you more than 4%. You factor in inflation, not a bad starting point. But again, don't take that as advice. We really need to run the plan. How about this one? Some of our clients are fortunate enough to work at companies that still have pensions, and oftentimes they can either choose the lump sum or the annuity. So how do you use the financial plan to help them answer that question?
Yeah, I would say as fiduciaries, we're not impartial to one or the other. Ultimately, we're going to go back to your financial plan and see if the lump sum is taken, we invest at a certain rate of return, does the annuity option keep up with that? And as long as it does, we're impartial. But generally speaking, there's a lot of pros to lump sums, especially if you want to do some more like estate planning. Because if you take the annuity option and the next day, unfortunately, you get hit by a bus, God forbid, that annuity is going to stop and there's not going to be anything left behind.
Right.
But go ahead.
No, thank you. Yeah, unless you like have a survivorship option, but if you're single, it more than likely will be left behind. Or if something happens to you and your spouse, it could be left behind. So you're right that there's typically a lot more flexibility with the lump sum, but there's a little bit more risk because again, you got to invest the money. You have to not spend it too quickly, right? The annuity will force discipline on some people. So there's pros and cons, like you said. But what's great about our financial planning software is we literally can run these side by side and toggle one on and one off to show you the impact. And then we can go over the pros and cons. And if you take the lump sum, what's going to be required of us and of you? And if you take the annuity, what's going to be required of you and your former company? Because now you're transferring that risk to them to manage the money and provide you with an income stream for the rest of your life. So that's good. But again, I can't answer that question without looking at somebody's financial plan, because I need to see everything, Social Security, their other investments, everything else that's going on before we can give them good guidance on that. But we can't answer it.
Yep.
Good. What about this one? I'm throwing a lot at you here, but how about this one? So many of our clients throughout their careers have been offered a buyout. So this is a voluntary separate package. So let's say somebody gets tapped on the shoulder, Matthew, and they call you up and say, hey, I just got offered a buyout. They're going to give me 30 weeks salary. They're going to pay for my health insurance. They're going to vest all my stock options. Should I take it? How do you answer that question?
That one, as you kind of been alluded to, it goes back to the financial plan. Have we, done the steps leading up to this to where you have that option, financial independence, retirement optional? Is it something you want to take? Are you ready for retirement? Or, were you planning on retirement, 10 years from now, and you wouldn't know what exactly to do? So all that's going to go back to that financial plan.
Right. So exactly. So if we had a place marker in 2025 for you to retire, and now we want to move that up to 2022, we literally can drag that marker to 2022, plug in your severance package, and tell you what that impact is financially, retiring now versus waiting 3 more years, 10 more years, whatever your goal was. This is a topic for another show, but if that happens to you, I also encourage you to think about the psychological impact, because again, not retiring when you have it planned is disruptive, and it's okay, but you want to work through that emotionally and not just financially, because that's a two-pronged situation there, and something that you definitely need to talk to somebody that, like us, that literally we've helped hundreds of clients with these types of financial planning questions that I'm bringing up today. Good. We've got a list here right in front of me. Keep it going. So how about this one? Matthew, I'm tired of paying so much in taxes. How do I pay less in taxes? How do you answer that question using the plan?
Yeah, everyone wants to pay less in taxes, but the government's always going to get their share. So paying less in taxes, we have to look at the plan and see how we can optimize usually distributions. So if you're retired, typically you have 3 buckets of retirement assets. You might have traditional, like the pre-tax one. You might have Roth and after-tax. And we could look at the plan and see what would be an efficient withdrawal to where we take some from each of those buckets to potentially keep you in a lower tax bracket.
Yeah, really good. And then we actually, we've taken a next level. We've actually purchased and gotten approved through our legal department tax planning software. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit. So not only do we have this financial plan that is very robust and malleable, that we can adjust it, why don't you talk about what you do from a tax planning perspective to take it to the next level for our clients?
Yeah, so our financial planning software incorporates all the tax assumptions, but we recently bought some, really cool new software for tax planning, where we'll scan in your last year's tax return, and all that information will filter in, and we can actually do what-if scenarios. So we can see, what if you switched your contributions from pre-tax to Roth? What if you, did various different strategies to potentially lower that? But then we have a nice little 4-page report with observations of other different ways you can lower your taxes, whether it be contributing to 529s. I mean, there's a lot of different options out there.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear. We are not giving tax advice. Like, we're not trying to replace your accountant or your CPA. We're just taking, hopefully, that good work that your CPA did in filing your taxes correctly. Hopefully they're correct. Then we scan that in. So we take we're filming this in 2022. So we take your 2021 return, scan it in, produces a nice 4-page summary. Like Matthew said, we will walk you through it And then if there's some strategies that we can deploy to potentially lower your taxes, we'll certainly want to run that by your CPA. And then we can start helping implement that right here at Falcon Wealth Advisors. So that's really exciting. I think our clients are finding a lot of value in that. Not every advisor does this, by the way. Not all wealth advisors are the same. So again, this is something that our team has embraced. Our clients for years were saying, hey, I want more tax planning. I want more tax planning. So we certainly listened. We vetted out the technology. We purchased it. And we're doing this and we're not charging our clients any extra for it. We just want to get deeper with the value that our clients add so that they know that we're true fiduciaries and looking at their whole wealth management picture. So that's a good one. That's a big one in there. You alluded to this a little bit earlier, but how about this one? I'll go back to that one. So how about when do I collect Social Security? This is what you alluded to earlier. So how do you answer that question, using our financial plan?
Yep. So as long as you have 40 work credits for Social Security, you're able to take it. The full retirement age for most people is around 66, 67, but people can take it as early as 62. So one thing we'll look at in the financial plan, depending on when you want to retire, is when do you need to kind of have that income stream. Because if you're retiring at 62, we might go ahead and turn it on at 62, take a reduced amount, but that'll be less you would have to pull from your investments because you have Social Security. Or alternative, if you're planning on retiring later, we would likely keep, deferring Social Security until you officially retire. But all that's going to go back to the plan and our, planning assumptions.
Right, and we can plug so anywhere from 62 to 70, you may potentially get a different amount. We can, again, run that software and plug it in and show you, based on when you take Social Security, how is that going to impact your overall financial plan? What's interesting to me, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that from my experience and studying Social Security, many times people that need Social Security the least, meaning they have a larger nest egg, it typically makes sense for them to turn it on sooner, believe it or not, because it makes up less of their actual retirement income versus people that don't have a very large nest egg and Social Security is going to make up a large percentage of their retirement income. Well, they need to wait and maybe even until age 70 when it fully maxes out. So it's a little counterintuitive to the way some people think. Some people that have less may think they need it sooner because they don't have as much, but those people may need to work longer or delay it so that they can ultimately fully fund their retirement later in life. So again, we can run all these numbers. The key is having a financial plan in place so that then we can run some of these scenarios off of it and help you make a good informed decision. We're dealing with the future a little bit in all these assumptions. So another quick caveat is that you always want to make sure that you review your plan. And financial planning is not a one-time exercise. It's an ongoing dialogue between us and our clients. And it's very important that we update the plan and meet regularly, at least once a year, and especially if something's changed in your life, to update and review the plan. Now, this is one I skipped over. I want to go back to. Clients will ask me a lot, hey, Jake, should I do a Roth IRA or contribute to a Roth IRA? How do you use the plan to help them answer that question?
Yeah, so using the plan, as you mentioned, we would do side-by-side scenarios. And because of all the tax assumptions in the plan, it's usually pretty accurate to where we can say, if you throw all this money into Roth, what's your long-term trajectory? Is it increasing the plan value or is it decreasing? And then we'll do the same thing if you stuck with pre-tax there. And with that comparison, you'll see a few differences. And main one would be for the pre-tax one. You'll have to take required minimum distributions at 72 versus if you do Roth, since you already pay that taxes, you don't have to do required minimum distributions. And so for some clients, when they turn 72, they have to take out, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it can be a real tax issue at that point. But as long as we have those two, scenarios in the plan, we can really model out the long-term impact of Roth.
Right. And you made a good point earlier that many times clients will have three different buckets, for lack of a better term. They'll have a taxable bucket, a Roth bucket, and an IRA bucket. That's a perfect scenario because, again, it's okay to load up the Roth, but you want to be careful because Washington can go in there and change the rules on you. So again, I like people being what's called tax diversified and having a little bit in all of them. But the Roth is certainly a pretty powerful account to have. And so, certainly for younger clients, we like to lean that direction. But again, you want to be careful because there's nothing saying that, 20 years from now, the IRS doesn't change the rules on you, and now a Roth isn't as good as it was. So you got to be careful with that and loading up in any one account. But like you said, we can plug all that into your plan and see what those projections are. Certainly for clients that are retired and they're not 72 years old yet, those Roth conversions can make a lot of sense. Like you mentioned, Matthew, for those required minimum distributions to lower those. And so that is a more short-term event that's going to take place that we can do some planning on to help. So again, the Roth is more complex, I think, than people think, and you want to plug it into a plan and look at those things before making that decision on which one you should do. Very good. How about this one? Do I need life insurance? How do you use the financial plan to answer that question?
Yep. And so going back to a plan, usually it's for, younger or middle-aged clients that have, dependents, children. If they're the only, breadwinner, we want to make sure there's enough life insurance available to where if anything happens, that person's income will be replaced. So we, go into the financial plan, we'll create a scenario and we'll actually show them, passing away, prematurely, which is, morbid there, but it's something that, we need to see from a planning perspective to see, what would be, happening behind the scenes if, so someone does pass away. Is there enough left behind for, the debts to be paid off, for a monthly income stream to come in? But all that goes back to the plan, and really we're just trying to solve for an income need.
Right, perfect. Yeah, and I always tell clients, I typically like term life insurance. It should be replace income, pay off significant debt, or help raise dependent children. In some unique situations, when you're dealing with estate planning, you may want a permanent insurance policy or something different. But most of and again, this isn't insurance advice. We got to look at your situation first before we give you advice. But again, most of our clients, we want to solve for paying off debt, replacing your paycheck, like you mentioned, your income need, and helping raise dependent children. So that's something that we can definitely run a needs analysis on, see what makes sense for you. I'm a licensed life insurance agent. I typically refer it out because, again, I'm not in that world. So I'd much rather have somebody that's in that world every day helping clients with that process. But again, I'm certainly have passed the certifications or whatever you needed to test to get my license. So I'm certainly able to talk to that. Here's a more fun one, right? To lighten it up a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you say when they say, Matthew, I want to buy a boat? Should I pay cash or should I finance it? How do you use the plan to answer this question?
Yep. So we'll actually go into the plan and create a goal, and we'll say, what if you took out, 40, 50,000 for this, brand new boat versus, financing it, and depending on how much, cushion that you have in your plan, it might kind of be splitting hairs. But, generally, if you can finance something at, 3-4% and your investments are making, 7-8%, as just an example there, you'd be better off leaving your money in the market. But for some clients, they prefer just the peace of mind of not having a liability or debt. And, they've done enough savings over time where they can, take a lump sum out. But we'll actually show the impact of both options in the plan.
Right, which is great. And again, this is the importance of having a financial plan in place, because if you don't have a plan in place and you ask these questions, we can't answer. Like if somebody called me today that's not a client and said, Jake, I want to buy a boat. Can I afford it? And should I pay cash? Like, it would be very difficult for me to answer that question. I would say, I can answer that, but first I need to create a plan for you, because then I can be able to give you some good advice. So that, again, so as life's events take place, that's why we want to have a plan in place. Now, another quick point to that, you also don't want to have a plan in place that's 10 years old or 5 years old even, right? That's why we reach out to our clients every year to update these plans, see what's changed in their lives, and make sure whatever we have on file is accurate and relevant for their lifestyle today. That's very important. And then I got one more question for you, and then we can wrap up the show here, Matthew. And this was, like you mentioned too, I think a little bit earlier also, we have more and more clients that are business owners. So how do you answer this question? Matthew, how much do I need to sell my business for so that I can make work optional?
Yeah, so I think that goes back to kind of our first couple of questions of, when do you want to retire, and, how much do you need in retirement to sustain your lifestyle? And at that point in the financial plan, we can back into the numbers, seeing if you sold your business for 500,000, $1 million, and is that investable, million, 2 million with our rate of return plus inflation, is that going to be enough to sustain your lifestyle?
Right, exactly. So again, we can plug that on, and we've got a newer, it's not new to our back office Hightower, but I know we have access to a business valuation tool that we haven't used as much. But if there are any business owners watching or listening to this and they want to take us up on it, we're happy to run through that. Of course, we would get Hightower support if we had questions on it, but it's a pretty neat deal. So if you're curious and you don't know what your business is worth and you want us to run a business valuation, I know we can certainly look into helping you accomplish that. So that could be worth your time, obviously, to take us up on that offer as well, just to see where you're at and see. And then I think that business valuation tool, we can see if your business is worth less than what you think it should be. We can help, maybe give you some guidance on what you need to do to get it up to a value that you want it to be, so that ultimately then we can plug that into the financial plan and you can make work optional. So if your business is worth 3 million and it needs to be worth 5 million, well, hopefully we can help pinpoint what needs to happen to make it worth 5 million so that you can ultimately retire and, again, not have to work. That was a lot of questions I threw at you, Matthew, but there's a common theme here, isn't it? And what would you say the common theme is?
The common theme is just having a financial plan in place, that's flexible also, because, as you mentioned, there's a whole bunch of different life events that are coming up. Even with these questions, it all depends on having that plan in place, having it updated, and make sure we review it together at least twice a year.
Right. Right. And I think where people miss it sometimes is they think a financial plan is concrete, and it is not. I mean, I've never seen a financial plan work out exactly how we set it up initially, because it just doesn't. And the beauty is our clients, and we know this, and our clients need to know that that's okay. And that's on purpose. Like, again, we're just designing a framework to help make good decisions. And then as the world and your life changes, we've got to be able to adjust and change the plan. And that's really what matters. And again, no one can predict the future, and these plans are predicting 30 years. But again, when we meet with clients, we're like, look, we don't put too much weight on that end dollar amount. If you're going to have $10 million when you're 93 years old, like, sure, that sounds good today, but we really care more about the trajectory and the road the plan is going down. And again, it's not a map, but the direction the plan is headed. And that's what we care about. So the influence, is it going in a healthy direction, or is it going in an unhealthy direction? And that's really what the plan should be used for, not a concrete roadmap. This is in place. This is exactly how my life is going to look. It doesn't work that way.
I wish I could do that for someone with my crystal ball and map out the next 30 years.
Right. Well, then they wouldn't need us. Then we would charge probably a lot more money up front, right?
Yeah,
we charge
very wealthy.
Charge a ton of money up front and say, all right, we've got the next 30 years mapped out for you. Nice meeting you. Good luck. And, but that doesn't work that way. And that's again why clients, they come in and they meet with us. And I put this out in my last newsletter, Upticks. And again, if you're not subscribed to Upticks, I highly encourage you to do that. It's a weekly newsletter that I send out on Tuesdays. But I put a little did you know in there, is that the way that our cost is derived is on the assets or the capital that we manage for our clients. But that cost also incorporates all of this planning work. And so many advisors will charge separate, and we still feel that might be a little too complex to really make all of our advice a la carte like that. So I don't want to do that. But it's important for clients to remember that you're not just paying us for our investment advice. All of this planning work, these meetings, the number crunching, the software that we pay for, obviously Matthew keeping his certified financial planning license, he's got to take continuing education, keeping all of that stuff updated and working with you in meeting. That's what clients are paying for. So they're paying for these ongoing meetings and dialogues, and again, our advice along with the investment management. It's very important that we look at both things when we review with you. We want to look at the investments and your plan to make sure that they're properly aligned. Did I miss anything?
No, that was very well said.
Well, thank you. And thank you again for being on my show today, Matthew. Good luck with the puppy. Thank you all for tuning in. Like I said, like, subscribe, share our content. Matthew, what's the best way for someone to contact you if they want to contact you directly about a financial planning question?
Yep, my email is Tomlin, Tomlin, at falconwealthadvisors.com. Or you can give my direct line a call. It's 913-326-1915.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you again for joining me. Again, my email is simply jake@falconwealthadvisors.com. We thank you again. And we hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.